Our new book at bedtime is Iain Banks' new novel Stonemouth, about an Aberdeenshire town ruled by two rival gangs. It's a cold, dark Friday evening, and Stuart Gilmore has returned home for a funeral, his first visit in 5 years.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. How can I ever change things that I feel?
Friday evening. Clarity, that would have been good. Instead, a cold, clinging mist. Not even mist, just a chill haze drifting up the estuary. I'm standing 50 metres above the Firth of Stoon, in the middle of the road bridge. I look up at the North Tower, and I'm wondering how well the cameras up there can see through the haze. I've been standing here for a couple of minutes, looking like a prospective jumper for all that time. Usually by now a wee yellow van would have been sent along the cycle track from the control centre to come and make sure I'm not thinking of doing something stupid. I look down at the waves again, wondering what Callum's last thoughts were as he fell towards the water, and whether he died without waking up or had time to suffer. Our school days felt an age away by the time Callum vaulted the safety railings on the road bridge, but we still all knew one another, all kept in some sort of contact. So it had an effect on every one of us, even me, the exile. At the time I thought maybe I'd be invited back to that funeral, but I wasn't. Still too soon. Emotions too raw. And here comes a wee yellow bridge van. I'm here to meet somebody, I think about telling whoever's driving the van as it approaches. The nearest man, the passenger, rolls down his window. It's Powell Emery, the man I'm here to meet. I'm still not sure whether to be relieved or terrified. "All right, Stu." I nod. I hate it when people call me Stu. He looks up, grimaces. "Coming on to rain. Jump in the back." I hesitate, then go to the rear of the van and open one of the doors. "Jump in," Powell repeats. I don't get in. I close the door and look round the side of the van to Powell's frowning face. "I'll walk." After a moment, the van whines backwards, reversing to keep pace with me. Powell is in the driver's seat now, massive mitts gripping the steering wheel. He's smiling thinly at me. The bridge employee who was driving is in the back. "Happy now?" "Cheers," I tell both of them, and get in. "You well, Stu?" Powell asks as we speed back down the path. "Yeah, fine," I say. "You?" He flashes a smile at me. "Dandy. Just dandy." "How's Ellie?" "She's fine. Take it you know about Callum." "Yeah, of course. Not totally out of touch." We're sitting in Powell's black Range Rover Sport in the viewing area near the bridge control centre. My more modest hired Ford car is a couple of bays away. "So, Stewie," Powell says, "what was it you wished to discuss?" I look him in the eye. "Am I okay to come back, Pow?" Powell nods wisely. "Aye, best to check. Feelings were running high and all that, eh?" There's movement outside the window. Black and white check pattern. Jeez, it's the cops. Powell swivels, grins, thumbs the window down. "Douglas, that you?" "Evening, Mr. Emery." Powell laughs. "What are you doing this side of the Firth, Dougie? This is bandit country for you guys, is it no?" "Aye," the officer says with a sheepish grin. He nods towards the bridge control buildings. "Overseen the bro-in-law. He's a rigger." Powell looks down at him. "I'd invite you in, but you're dripping." "No, it's all right." He stares in at me. "That your car over there?" "Aye, hired. Saw that. Left your sidelights on, sir." "Did I? Thanks. Thought I heard an extra beep or two." Dougie walks off through the drizzle. Powell runs the window back up and sighs. "Where were we? Oh, yes, aye. You're clear to land, Stewie boy. No harm scheduled to befall. Not at our hands, anyway. You're still not on Mr. M's Christmas list, and he'd appreciate a wee visit, maybe this evening, just so you can pay your respects. But no, you're fine. You here long?" "Just the weekend." For Joe's funeral, aye. Aye, for the funeral. Joe asked for me to be here himself. I open the door. A few drops of rain swirl in. I get out and stand looking in at Powell. Thanks, Pow. He looks pleased at this, so it was probably worth the small amount of self-esteem it cost me. Powell's Range Rover burbles to the evening while I walk over to my hire car. The still-on sidelights welcome me, reproachful. 5 minutes later, I'm driving into Stonemouth. The quickest road from the bridge to the Murston house doesn't go through the centre of town. Sometimes in winter there was snow up there for days before any appeared on the ground in the town, and the house seemed some sort of half-mythical mountain palace. Callum Murston, denying it was his mum and dad's house when I pointed it out to him from Art Room 2, didn't help demystify it either. "Hey, Callum, isn't that your house up there on the hill?" Callum squinted, already frowning aggressively, and finally saw where I was pointing. "No, it's not," he said, sounding angry and looking like he was going to hit me. By that time I'd come to accept that the place was the Murston family gaff, and I just assumed he was denying it to mess with me, or because he was oddly embarrassed at coming from what was obviously a very large house. All the same, it was largely because of the house glimpsed through the trees that I persevered in getting to know Callum and becoming one of his friends, and it was largely through Callum and the just-deceased Joe that I got to know the rest of the family. The cloud is clearing a little as I swing the car between the tall, ornate gateposts of the Murston house. A guy in blue overalls appears from behind a truck. It's Stevie Ross, from the year above me at school. "Hiya, stranger!" He comes up and shakes my hand. "You know about Callum, eh?" "Off the bridge," I say. "Good to see you, Stuart." I leave him and go to the front door. A young Asian woman I don't recognise answers the bell and shows me into the conservatory. I can hear a radio or iPod playing pop somewhere in the house. After a few minutes, I start to suspect I'm being put in my place by being made to wait, so I sit down and wait. I pull out the iPhone. Normally I'd play a game or check emails, but all I do is tweet where I am and put the phone away. Before I ever got to know the Murstons or got invited to their house, a gang of us set off on an expedition to check the place out one sunny Sunday afternoon. There was me, Dom Lennett, Al Dunn, Wee Malky and Bodie Ferguson. Down the hillside, beyond a straggled line of trees, lay the long, wavily manicured fairways of Jamfside Golf Club. We found a way over a fence using a handy tree, used a sort of tunnel through the whin that was probably a deer route, and got to the edge of the 12th fairway. Dom suddenly decided it'd be the height of wit to deposit what he described as a big steaming toley down the nearest hole, which happened to be the 11th. "Oh, Dom, dinna be daft, man. I'm not staying to witness this. You'll get the jail." I just jogged off to the far side of the fairway, shaking my head. "You're dead, Gilmore!" Dom shouted after me. "Oh, Stu, dinna, come on!" That was Al. "You're such an only child, Stuart," Ferg yelled. "You'll get to jail!" And so I was able to watch from the perfect cover of a little whin-covered hillock as the next group of golfers appeared over the rise just as Dom got his trousers down and started squatting over the hole. Al was holding the pin. The 4 golfers stood open-mouthed for a moment, then yelled, abandoned their bags, and charged. I slipped away through the bracken, heading uphill for the trees and the meadow, careful to move with as little disturbance as possible. But I was never in any real danger. I saw the girl riding the horse then. She'd been beautiful, graceful, long legs and a serene face on a slender neck. Her hair either short or gathered up under her riding hat. It was Ellie, I think. When I mentioned this to her years later, she wasn't so sure, and said sometimes her friends came and rode her ponies. "Mr. Murston says to see you now," a female voice says, and I follow the Asian girl through the house. "I'm Stuart," I tell her, as the pop music gets gradually louder. "Maria," the girl says, opening the door to the pool and fitness suite annex with all the windows and blinds and the white Greco-Roman columns. She's gone before I can say nice to meet you, and I'm confronted with Donnie Murston, the not-yet greying head of the Murston clan. "Aye, it's yourself, Stuart." "Evening, Mr. M." "Too feart to call me Donald these days, eh, Stuart?" He nods. Inspection finished. Done all right for yourself, Stuart? Or just putting on an act, eh? Dressing up? The breath I was going to use to speak sort of collapses out of me, but I smile as tolerantly as I can. I'm doing okay. What is it you do, anyway? Lighting. Lighting? He frowns. Buildings, I tell him. Exteriors, mostly. Where are you based? London. He's still just staring at me. I don't know if that's contempt in his eyes or indifference. Just been made a partner. Aye, very nice. He nods, sucking his lips in. Let's not pretend everything's hunky-dory, eh? Or you're still always welcome in this house, eh, Stuart? Not after what you did. You've Mrs. M to thank for being here. Put in a good word for you. Think yourself lucky I listened to her and know the boys. The tiniest frisson of hope, excitement even, runs through me. How is Ellie? She's none of your business, that's how she is. Don't let me keep you. I look down at the floor, nod. Thanks for seeing me, Mr. M. I mumble and turn, walk. As I draw level with the glazed ceramic cheetahs, he says, Just here for the weekend. Due to leave Tuesday morning. Good. I let myself out. Somewhere in the house, a tiny-sounding dog is barking hysterically. It's only 10 minutes from Hill House to my mum and dad's. I like driving the wee car, even though it does seem a bit small now. I passed my test in one of these all those years ago, and it's sort of nostalgic. Aye, well, you'll save money on petrol, eh? Dad says, dropping himself into a chair. He looks me in the eye, glances at the door to the hall, and drops his voice slightly. You all right to come back, aye? Met with Powell Imrie. Already been to see Donald. Reckon I'll get out of town alive. He still looks serious. They were both okay. Powell was fine. Donald was a bit, well, like Donald, but okay. Dad nods. Another kitchenward glance, voice dropping a little again. I told Mike you might be coming back for the funeral. Mike McAved is the other daddy in town. The Murstons and Mike Mac run their businesses with the minimum of fuss and no guns. They have the weaponry, but they've broken it out only twice in the last 15 years, as far as I know. Dad sits back, relaxes. He looks at me properly. Looking well. You doing all right? And with that, we're safely into small talk, largely about what I do and don't possess. I don't possess a car, for example, which Dad seems to think is almost sacrilegious. I keep telling him I don't need one in London. Mum comes in with a big tray and asks about whether I'm happy and about girls. I think about saying something like, they're all shaved these days, Mum. Pubic hair's an endangered species. But that would be a bit weird. And probably wouldn't even shock Mum anyway. I tell her I'm not involved with anybody long-term at present. Too busy. She smiles. Good to have you back, son. Good to be back, Mum. Aye, Dad says.
Stonemouth by Iain Banks was read by David Tennant. It was abridged by Peter Mackey and was a heavy entertainment production.
If I could, maybe I'd give you my world. How can I, if you won't take it from me?
Stuart, great to see you. Mine's whatever overpriced continental lager this is. Ask BB for details. Ferg holds up a nearly drained pint glass. We're in the head in hand. Ferg, lanky, darkly foppish-haired, eyes glinting, is the same Bodie Ferguson of the golf course story. BB is Big Bairn, nickel done. I find him and find out who's drinking what. Ferg was my great rival at school for prizes, especially the English prize. He was pretty good at art, but I was better. Anyway, my best friend, for want of a better term, until I left in such a hurry and we lost touch. You're in London? Why wasn't I informed? I'm in London sometimes. So what is it you do again? I like buildings. You're a pyromaniac. Aha, be still my aching sides. I smile as the girl comes over and I say, hi, take my phone out and read off the drinks order. Yes, Ferg says, you would have an iPhone, wouldn't you? Yes, I would. So, Stuart, you stick big lights round buildings and make sure they're pointing sort of generally towards it. That's your job. That's what you do. This is your career. Do you have a job, Ferg? Of course. I'm a wildly talented games designer. You've probably played some of the games I've designed. It's a good night. Lot of chat, crack, whatever, lot of laughing. Good to be with the old gang again. We visit several bars. Ferg, an equal opportunities predator, hits on 3 women and at least 2 guys. Exchange numbers and everything. We're walking between bars near the docks when I catch a whiff of something sharp, like chlorine or whatever it is they put in swimming pools, and I'm right back. The first time I definitely saw Ellie. Years and years ago. It was one of those hot, hazy summers from my teens. Her swimming costume was a one-piece, black. Her legs looked like they'd stretch into different time zones when she lay down, and her face was just this vision of blissed serenity. She saw me looking at her. She smiled. It seems crazy now. It seemed crazy then. You can't decide you've found your life's desire, your soulmate on the strength of a glance. We're in the house now. Slaves to tradition, Ferg and I are in a corner, sitting on those wobbly white plastic one-piece chairs you see in back gardens and down-market resorts throughout the world. One of the girls, who's bopping, glances up at me and smiles. It's lovely Haley, wee sister of Tiger Yunsen. Anyway, I thought we were getting on really well, me and Haley. That smile from the girl confirms it. Typical. And me meaning to stay pure and devoted to Ellie this weekend. So, how much does this floodlighting scam pay? Ferg asks. Back to reality. I clear my throat. A fair bit. Don't be coy with me. How much? 100 grand a year, I tell him. This is a lie. I stare at him. I so want to tell the bastard I've just been made partner, but it actually feels cooler not to somehow. I look round the people on the decking. I recognise most of them. So many people doing the same things they were when I left, hanging out in the same places, saying the same things, having the same arguments. It feels comfortable, reassuring, just being able to step back into our old shared life so easily, but at the same time a bit terrifying and a touch sad. Later, somebody's flat, not sure where. Navigation back to the Maw and Paws may be interesting. Taxi recommended. The beautiful Haley appears before me and seems to be trying to drag me to my feet to dance, but I just sit there, slumped and smiling and shaking my head while she tugs at my arms. But then I have had a lot to drink and some blow, and I vaguely recall knocking back a pill of some sort earlier. Haley thrusts my jacket into my hands and leans her lovely head right down to mine. Your taxi's here. Then she and Ferg are helping me up and putting me in the back of a taxi. At Mum and Dad's, I head upstairs to a room and bed still familiar, even after 5 years away. Home. Saturday. She drove me to the station. That night. That warm night when it all went sour. When the world collapsed around me 5 years back. Is there anything I can say? Duck, she says urgently. Write down. You all right, hen? 2 male voices say almost at once, oh, Jesus, it's them. Her brothers. They're out looking for me. I could die here. I'm fine. I'm just driving. And you two? What? What are you doing? Looking for that two-timing bastard. Go home, she tells them. No, you go home. I just want to drive around a bit, guys, okay? I'll be fine. Everything's cool. I'm thrown forward, then to the side, then back, all in a roar of engine and a brief screech of tyres. Safe to surface, I hear her say, maybe half a minute later. I look at her in the darkness as we make another turn. My throat tries to close up. I'm so sorry. At first I think she doesn't hear me. Then as we draw to a decorous, perfectly controlled stop by the station entrance, she glances at me and says, "I know. You could come with me." She shakes her head. "Just get out, Stuart." I stand for a bit in the warm night, listening to the breeze in the tallest branches of the nearby trees until I hear the rumble of a train, way in the distance, coming closer. It's barely noon as I stride out of our street and hit Glendrummy Road, heading east under the light, fresh, sun-struck haze. On the beach, with the sloped grey wall of the promenade to my left, I walk north under the grey-pink striations of the slowly dissipating fog. I walk keeping to the firmest sands, waving to one or two groups of people when they wave to me. I get to the start of the trees and then the Brochty Burn after about an hour and a quarter. We tried wading this stretch a few times when we were kids, because the next viable crossing was miles upstream. But glory be, now there's a bridge. Now they put a bridge in, I mutter to myself, still grinning, then feel foolish and look round to make sure there's nobody around to overhear, which there isn't, of course. I look back the way I've come, along the restless sand. That first night I saw her by the light of a beach fire, a roaring pyre spindling the enveloping darkness, while the white waves rose and fell along the margin of the shore and the stars wheeled like frozen spray. She'd just waded out of the shallows with a few others who'd been in for a midnight swim. I handed the J back, coughing. "What is this? Dried seagull shit?" "Oh, shut up and wait for the pills to kick in," Ferg told me. It was the last summer we'd all be together. Between high school and the various gap years, universities, colleges and jobs we were all bound for. I kept looking over at Ellie. She was sitting with Josh McAvitt. They sat close on towels, her hair still glistening darkly. Ellie and Josh were sort of going out. She was supposed to be mine. I'd hardly talked to her, barely touched her. A handshake once, a brush of cheek against cheek at her birthday earlier that year, and a few formal hugs. Dear God, Ellie was beautiful. Firelight on a beach under the stars will improve pretty much anybody's looks, obviously, but even so, the girl was just startlingly beautiful. Eye-wideningly beautiful. Breath sucked out of you beautiful. I felt I was about to start moaning or something, if I hadn't inadvertently already, so I looked away. Ferg was lying gazing at me, an odd expression on his face. He turned his head languorously, taking in the handsome huddle that was Josh and Ellie, then looked back at me. Jealous? Envious, I conceded. Have you ever thought you might be even slightly gay, Stuart? Yeah, but no, definitely not. How do you know if you haven't tried? Dude, I haven't tried chlamydia, but I don't want that either. Stuart, kiss me. I swear it'll lead to something better, or at least the chance of it. Take it. Okay, but no tongues. Of course tongues, you idiot, Ferg said, grasping me by the back of the neck and bringing our mouths together. I did sort of open, and there was some tongue action, but I was distracted. Ferg pulled away with a sigh. Your heart really isn't in it, is it, my love? Neither's anything else, I said, wiping my mouth. Sorry. Come on, Ferg called over to Josh, and they both rose. It's a challenge. Where to? Josh asked. To wherever one of us can't run anymore and has to stop for breath. Ellie was holding a white handkerchief. She let it go. Go, she said, and the guys raced off. It seemed like the obvious thing to do, so I sat down beside Ellie. Hey, Stuart, she said, making more room for me. I was just wondering when we'll see them again, Josh and Ferg. She looked to where the guys had disappeared. Could be a while, she said, smiling. It was an odd smile. Maybe a little sad, wistful, something like that. Then she lay down on her side, one arm beneath her head. She stretched, yawned, cat-like, completely unself-conscious. Do you want me to... I nodded to one side. Do I want you to what? Go. Do you want me to go? Why? She murmured. Do you have somewhere else you have to be? I laughed quietly. Not as such. Do you want to go? No. Then don't. She flapped the blanket edge, Come on. Getting cold. I did as I'd been told and cuddled into her, under the blanket, my back against her front. We woke up to a cool grey morning and to what were probably meant to be knowing smiles. Sleep okay? Never better, I lied. Now, my cock was about the only bit of me that wasn't stiff. About you and Josh, I said, after a few moments. What about me and Josh? There's a party at Maddie Ferry's place tomorrow night. I know. You were going? Yes. With Josh? He was going to pick me up. Well, I wondered if I could take you. Could I pick you up instead? She nodded thoughtfully. I suppose you could. The first time Ellie and I actually had sex was mildly disastrous, more awkward than my very first time nearly 3 years earlier. She was tense and unsure, and it was neither a joyous romping bonkfest nor a sinuously graceful coupling of two bodies utterly meant for each other. You still want to keep seeing me? She asked over mugs of tea in bed, not looking me in the eyes. Are you completely insane? I kind of fell in love with you 3 years ago. I've been dreaming, fantasizing about you ever since. I've wanted you forever, Elle. I'm just terrified you'll get bored with me. Now who's insane? At school, Ellie had got used to being top of the class in whatever subject she could be bothered to put any effort into, but she never really studied and consistently underperformed in exams. Nevertheless, she had finally pulled up her metaphorical socks and done pretty well in her last year. All the same, it had been a turbulent time for all concerned. Ellie had never really developed the skill of giving in gracefully. Even now, when she had Oxbridge-level grades, she'd settled for Aberdeen. As far as she was concerned, it had the best social scene. Meanwhile, I was going to become a great artist. I was going to take the artistic world by storm. Dad told me to get a grip. Mum said that all sounded fantastic, but Ellie listened to my dreams and told me there was probably not a single thing I couldn't do if I put my mind to it. Naturally, I heard what I wanted to hear. As you do.
Stonemouth was read by David Tennant and was a heavy entertainment production for BBC Radio 4.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. How can I ever change things that I feel?
I got a talking to. I'd known it was coming. It was Fraser and Norrie's birthday, the first time I'd been invited to the family home as Ellie's boyfriend, about a month after the beach party. Come and see Fraser's new wagon, I was told. So, Murdo, Callum, Fraser and Norrie and I all trooped through the kitchen and utility and into the hangar-like triple garage to admire this horrendous but very shiny, jacked-up piece of Americana. We were clutching drinks. I had a can of something soft. I'd already gathered that my choice of beverage had produced mixed feelings in the Murston lads. No drinking? Driving. Eh? Not just me. Ellie'll be in the motor too. All right. Aye, okay then. We thought we should let you know, the four of us, how we feel about our sister and that, eh? Murdo said, to a sort of mini Murston Mexican wave of nods. Callum here's put in a good word for you. And Grandpa, Fraser said to Murdo. Him too. Murdo nodded. Aye, and Grandpa. We don't want to see her get hurt like, Norrie said. The others looked at him. Aye, Murdo said. And she's part of this family. And nobody insults this family. Understand? Of course, I began. You insult her, or take the piss, Murdo said, ignoring me. And you're taking the piss out of us too. You're insulting her dad, right? Right, said Callum. Don't want to insult anybody, guys. I looked round at them all. I respect Ellie. I respect the family. Want you to know that, guys, okay? So we became an item. We became Stuart and Ellie, or Ellie and Stewie, or Stu and Elle. At some point, Maybe after a year, when we were still seeing each other and still staying faithful to each other, even though I was in Glasgow and she was in Aberdeen, and we were meeting new people all the time, I think we both realised this might indeed be something genuinely serious. Something, maybe, forever. When I asked Ellie to marry me, it was kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing, and I expected her to say no. Never really occurred to me she might say anything else. Not after all the time she'd told me how she'd grown up listening to her parents snipe and shout at each other, and hating that they felt tied, manacled to one another. I was slightly stunned when she said yes. She pushed back, looked at me through teary eyes. "You sure?" "Well, I am now," I thought of saying, but didn't. "Of course," I told her.
Everything turned around, packing up, checking up, saw you wanna do. If I could, maybe I'd give you my word.
I see the figure on the beach from maybe a mile away. Just a single dark dot walking slowly, obscured by drifting tendrils of mist. It might be her, I think. It could be her. She kind of walks like her. No long hair, unless they're wearing a close-fitting hat. I'm so busy watching her that I miss a step and half fall down the sea face of one of the small dunes. When I look back at the dark figure in the distance, she's standing again, facing me, I think. From the way her arms are set, she's looking at me through her camera. She waves, puts the camera down, the long lens hanging by her side, and I think I hear her shouting something. Jeez, is it her? We start walking towards each other. My heart's in my mouth. My knees feel weak. What next? Am I going to swoon? Just the adrenaline from the near fall, I tell myself. Pull yourself together, Gilmore. "Hey there, stranger," she says. It's Greer. She walks like Ellie, and she has similar build to her big sister, though she's a little less tall. I have a sudden thought, glancing up and down the beach and back towards the forest. "Your brothers aren't here, are they?" "No, it's just me." She slips her arm through mine like it's the most natural thing in the world, and we head diagonally back across the beach, northwest. She walks easily by my side, stride for stride. Her boots look like riding boots, though from the trail of her footsteps we're retracing they have serious grips. She's looking down at the sand, or the trail, seemingly intent. "Back for Grandpa Joe's funeral, huh?" "Yeah, special dispensation from your old man. He seemed quite happy I'd only be here till Tuesday." "Tuesday?" she repeats, a glance. "You well?" "Yup." "You?" "Yup." I am being impersonated. She steals another glance. "Doing okay?" "Yup. Still lighting buildings. You?" "Sort of a photographer's assistant, I guess. Get in front of the lens now and again." "So you're a model?" She puts her head back, and I can tell she's rolling her eyes. "No, I'm a trainee photographer. That sound better?" She smiles a big, beautiful smile. Then she looks away. "You going to see Ellie?" "I suppose. Maybe. She'll be at the funeral, won't she?" "She is here? She's not abroad, or she's here?" "Well, we'll both be at the funeral, I guess. Whether I'll be allowed to speak to her." "You're both adults, you know." "Yeah, but it's not quite that simple, is it? There's your dad." "Yeah, there's our dad. Dad, my dad, Donnie. Do you hate him?" I blow a breath out. "Hate? I don't know. We'll never be friends, but I can see he's got his point of view. I did something that hurt Ellie and hurt the family. Hurt him. I meant more about him being a gangster, or crime lord if you prefer." I give a little whistle. The G word is one that we tend not to use very much in the tune. Technically it's the truth, I suppose, but the way things get run in Stonemouth between the Murston and the Macavit families on two sides and the cops on the other means there isn't much in the way of obvious gangster activity. She pulls her arm out from mine and steps ahead. Turning to face me, her arms crossed as she keeps pace with me, walking backwards. "You want me to fix up a meeting between you and Ellie?" "What are we, mafia crime lords?" She laughs. "Yeah, but do you?" I shake my head. I don't know about that. Of course I want to see Ellie, but involving Greer doesn't seem like so great an idea. "How is Ellie, anyway?" "She's okay, anyway. Greer tells me as we reach the car park. She walks up to a BMW X5 and flips it open. This thing your dad's? Dunno, family fleet car, kinda. I'm going to see Grandpa. Wanna come? Where is he? Geddens, lying in state. Geddens is the oldest funeral company in town. Yeah, I tell her. Yeah, okay. I'd met Joe when I was walking in the hills, before I got to know the rest of the adult Murstons, before I ever talked to Ellie beyond the odd, grunted, embarrassed hi when our paths crossed infrequently. Joe must have been in his 70s then. Morning, the old guy said. Aye, I said. Usually I avoided other people in the hills where I could without making it obvious. You're a tin boy, aye? I turned and looked at him. Aye. Accent, he said, tapping a large, round and quite red nose. Yourself? I asked. Aye. For so far back I doot your father was born. Well, better be going, I said. Joe nodded. Wouldn't he want to keep you? Mind how you go now? Aye. Nice to meet you. As I started to head home, I took a forest track a bit too fast on my moped, whacked the sump or something, and the bike bled a trickle of oil onto the narrow track. I was still wondering what to do when an ancient blue Volvo estate came humming along the road. It drew to a stop, and it was the same old guy. You have a spill, son, eh? Aye. He helped me manhandle the bike into the back of the estate, and then offered his hand as we were about to leave. Joe. Stuart. Fine Scottish name. The bike was a write-off, and I wasn't allowed a new one, not if I wanted to live at home for the next couple of years. Mum and Dad got me a car, a hopelessly underpowered and terribly safe VW Polo, the day I turned 17. By then, I knew Joe was Joe Murston, father of Donald. I stand in the funeral parlour looking at him. It's quiet and cool in here, and it smells of lilies, a too sweet, cloying smell. How did he die? Heart, Greer says. She goes up to him and runs her fingers through the sandy, wispy hairs on his mostly bald head, patting them into a slightly different arrangement. Never touched a dead person before. She bends at the waist and quickly kisses him on the forehead. Think that's our respects paid, yeah? She dusts her hands. I'm hungry. I watch her attacking an all-day breakfast in Bessel's Cafe a few doors down from the funeral parlour. You seen Ellie lately? I ask her. Day or two ago. Where is she these days? Still in Aberdeen. I think she keeps the flat there, but she's mostly living out at that old Carndine Castle place, the one they converted. Oh yeah. She's got a terribly posh attic. Is she okay? She's fine, Stuart. You can't ask her yourself. I find myself patting the pocket with my phone in it. Think she'd talk to me? It'd be an unknown number. I mean, if she knew it was me. Greer looks thoughtful, shrugs. She stopped talking to Callum, I say. Pretty much. Why was that? He said something hurtful to her. Greer tips her head. You know all the stuff about Ellie? I think about this. How would I know if I didn't? Greer rolls her eyes and leans in closer over our tiny table. I mean, marrying Ryan. Of course I knew about that. The blindingly, obviously destined to fail marriage to Mike Makovitz's younger son that only she and Ryan ever thought was a good idea, and maybe not even both of them. The miscarriage? I nod slowly. I heard a rumour. Then divorcing Ryan? Know of. Still, I was sorry to hear Callum fell or was pushed off the bridge. I must be staring at her. She flaps one hand. Nah, he jumped. She sits back. But if you're telling the truth about being sorry to hear about it, you're part of a small minority. She tips her head again. Dawn keeps the tape of Callum jumping. Did you know that? What? From the bridge CCTV, Night Cal took the plunge, plays it back when he's drunk and, what's that word? Maudlin. That is deeply weird. Not saying he gets off on it, Stu. Just plays it. Still a bit weird. We're in the central car park where the old railway station used to be. Greer comes right up to me and jabs me in the chest with one finger. Again, no gossiping, yeah? Swore to Dad I'd never do drugs. She grins widely. Hilariously hypocritical, eh? Hilarious. I agree. My phone goes, and I let her get into the car while I answer. It's Mike Mack, telling me he's busy through to 5. See me then? So I've got time to kill this afternoon. Another karmic nudge? Maybe I ought to do a few lines with Greer. I look through some texts. One from BB suggesting a game of snooker at Regal Tables, just a couple of minutes' walk away on the high street. I hold a wait-a-moment finger up to Greer, who raises, then drops her shoulders dramatically and throws herself back in her seat. I call BB. Stu! You at the Regal? Aye, playing with myself here, man. It's shite. You coming, like? There in 5. Pint? Just the Auto E for me. Shaggerlandy it is. I open the X5's passenger door. Stuff to do, I tell Greer. Later? Funeral, if not before, Greer says, looking unimpressed. Call.
Stonemouth was read by David Tennant. It was a heavy entertainment production for BBC Radio 4.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. How can I ever change things that I feel?
Regal Tables. Stonemouth's premier snooker and American pool venue for over 30 years, occupies an old cinema on the high street. BB and I are just starting our second game when I see a group of 4 guys come in and look towards us. 2 are big, heavy-set guys. One is kind of normal and the other one's wee and nervy looking. They take the table next to ours. The first time it's my turn to play at the same time as the wee guy on the other table, we both want to use the aisle between the tables at once. I stand and wait for him to finish, but he's shaking his head and keeps standing up and looking like he's about to take his shot but then changing his mind. After about 5 minutes of this shite, I sigh and pull my phone out to check the time. He swaggers towards me, wee eyes screwed up. You taking the piss? Look, I tell him, we're just here like yourselves to have a quiet game of pool. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're just here to try and take the piss at me. No wanting any trouble, BB says in a sort of muted rumble. Oh, don't be daft, I begin, and instantly know this is a serious mistake. You calling me daft, Jab? He called you daft, D-Cup, one of his big mates says. D-Cup? Perhaps it was Teacup. But Teacup would be a shit street name. It was definitely D-Cup. BB's useless. I haven't even been near a fight in 10 years, and the staff here would appear to be pals of D-Cup and his chums. Look, I talked with Don Murston just yet. I don't care who you talk to. This isn't supposed to happen, I want to wail. Mr. M said it was okay for me to be here. Then there's a hint of movement in the darkness to one side of me. Problem here, ladies? The flicker of movement resolves into Powell Imrie, appearing as though out of a trapdoor. D-Cup registers who it is. Aye, Mr. Imrie, this shitbag has been a shitbag, that's what the problem is. There's the briefest pause here before Powell looks at me and smiles. Hello again, Stuart. You all right? I'm fine. D-Cup, isn't it? He says. Can I show you a wee trick, D-Cup? Eh? What? Powell moves a few millimetres closer to D-Cup, towering over him. Put your hand down on the table. Oh, shit, Powell, Mr. Imrie, please. Just put your hand down. On the table. Flat. He takes the wee guy's right wrist and places his hand flat on the baize for him. Fingers together. When D-Cup's hand is flat on the table, Powell hooks his left leg behind D-Cup's knees without touching him, then pushes him quickly on the chest with his free hand. D-Cup yelps and starts backwards, falling over as he encounters the leg Powell has curled behind him. The whole hand on the table thing was just distraction. Good trick, eh? Powell says, to nobody in particular. Then he comes up to me and puts an arm round my shoulder. Hired the car for a week, that right? Uh-huh. If you did need to go earlier, though, you could, eh? Earlier? Monday evening. Or afternoon, say. Why would that be, Powell? Well, you know, the boys. The boys? You mean Murdo, Fraser, Norrie? Bit headstrong. Can be. That's all. Then, with a final tap-tap on the elbow and a glance and a nod at everybody else round our 2 tables, he's off.
Everything turned around. Packing up, checking up, saw you on a do. If I could, maybe I'd give you my word.
The Deep Blue 4 is a mega trawler, and the crews are Mike Makovitz's main supply of muscle. Things are running a little late, so Mike phoned me to say come to the docks rather than the house. Partly, though, I think he still feels the need to impress people with the sheer scale of the new boat. Mike shakes my hand and I try not to wince. Good to see you, Mike. He bustles me away down the various ladders and steps to the quayside in his Bentley. 10 minutes later, we're at the Makovit house, a Scots baronial stone pile at the far end of Marine Terrace. We're barely sitting when his phone goes, and then he's frowning and saying, "What do they want? Aye, hold the fortress, but out there." I hear the front door close. I stand, looking out at the haze over the sea for a while, going back over the near rumble at Regal tables. Not good. Too close a thing. "Stuart, oh my God, is that you?" It's Mike's daughter, Angelica, in a long pink toweling robe. "It is you. Hey, how are you, stranger?" Angelica comes running up and pretty much throws herself at me, the robe flying open as she tears across the parquet and revealing a tiny pink bikini and lots of tanned skin. I sit back on the window ledge, arms folded. "How are you, Jel?" "Oh, I'm fine. You seen herself yet?" Ellie? No, not so far. Don't know if I will." "She really messes people up, that girl." I look at her for a moment or two. "Yeah, whereas you and I..." But the only things I can think to say are hurtful and sort of pointlessly petty. I've learned, belatedly, not to say stuff like that just because I feel I need to say something. Anything. She lunges forward, stands, gathers her robe about her. "I better get dressed." She hurries to the door, then turns. "Sorry, how rude. Can I get you anything?" "No thanks, I'm fine." She nods slowly. "Yes, and no," she says. Then she's gone. Mike comes back. We chat. All is well. Business is good. Things are calm. He's sorry my stay in Stonemouth can't be longer, but, well, that's just the way things are. The front door has only just closed, and I'm halfway up the garden path, heading back to the street, when I hear the door open again. It's Angelica, dressed now, in tight jeans and a scoop-neck tee. "Here," she says, thrusting a container into my hands. "Mum baked this morning." "Thanks." "Welcome." Then she turns and goes. I open one end of the container and stick my nose in, smelling flour both baked and not, and a faint hint of strawberries, a scent that always takes me back to the Ancrum family's estate and a succession of summer days, half my life ago. Malcolm Hendry, wee Malky, was just one of those kids. He came from one of those families you needed a diagram and some drafting skills to describe properly. There was a husband, wee Malky's dad, but he was in Peterhead prison, where he'd been since shortly after wee Malky was born. The only way to get wee Malky really upset was to diss his dad. Callum Murston once asked him if his mum had moved to Stonemouth to be handy for Peterhead in the prison, and wee Malky just went berserk. He flew at Callum like something out of a catapult and had to be prized off him. Callum was left bruised and with a badly bitten ear. He clearly wasn't happy about getting attacked like that, and a couple of playtimes later, wee Malky got marched round the back of the bike sheds and given a good kicking by Callum and his older brother Murdo. The Ancrums had children within our age range. We were all about 13 or 14 at the time. Hugo Ancrum was a lanky boy with fair hair, blue eyes, fine features, and an English accent. That was how to wind Hugo up. Accuse him of being English because he talked the way upper-class Scots who've been to private schools tend to. "Go on, Hugh, call us oiks!" Hugo had been given a lot of paintball gear for his birthday that year. 12 guns, sets of body armour and face masks and so on. "Now look, he said one day. "My brother's supposed to be tagging along today. If anybody's got a problem with that, well, tough." "Whatever, Hugh," Ferg said, shrugging. "No probs," Josh McAvet agreed. "Aye," Callum Murston said. Hugo looked relieved. "Good." "Now, boys, this is George," his mother told us, leading him by the hand. Hugo's brother was nearly 20, but his mental age was stuck at 5. "I hope you'll take good care of him and play nicely. Do you promise?" We all agreed that we did. "Don't you worry, missus," wee Malky said. "You can depend on us, ma'am," Ferg told her. The sun was still high over the hills as the afternoon started to draw to a close, and we set up for the last game of the day. A complicated arrangement of scoring across the various skirmishes and the different team combinations had resulted in wee Malky coming out last, so he had to be the prey. Basically, he got a 2-minute start, and then we all chased him. If he lasted for half an hour or got back to his bike without getting splattered again, he'd won. George's deep voice rumbled into action. "May I have a gun too this time, please?" He was the least paint-spatter of us, though even he'd taken a couple of stray hits, partly due to his sheer size, you had to suspect. "No, George," Hugo told him. Callum lost wee Malky and blundered off into a bog, getting very annoyed. Most of the rest of us set off up the same path, while Hugo and George and Felpy took the most direct route back to the house. This party of 3 was halfway back when they heard a lot of shouting uphill and assumed that wee Malky had been spotted. Hugo left George in Felpy's charge and climbed a handy tree to take a look. When he got back down, George had gone. "You were supposed to look after him!" Hugo roared at Felpy. "Aye, so? I told him not to go. What else could I do, man? He's a monster." "There he is!" Josh yelled. Josh had spotted wee Malky running along the top of the dam wall, sprinting like a hare for the far side where the overflow was. Down at the bottom of the grassy slope, stepping down the half-metre into the concrete channel and then wading upstream to the foot of the overflow slope, was George, holding, in both hands, a sword almost as big as he was. "Where'd that come from?" Felpy breathed beside me. My throat didn't seem to be working properly. "House," I managed to say, gulping, remembering the circles and fans of weapons arrayed across its walls. Nobody followed Hugo down the grassy dam. I suppose that sword, suddenly so adult compared to our play guns, had sent a chill through all of us. Everything felt very still, as though the air had coagulated around us. While we were all watching this, Callum raised his gun and fired, hitting wee Malky in the head with a yellow squirt of paint. Wee Malky yelped and fell, splashing into the water on the overflow side, one arm reaching out to try to grasp the round stones at the summit, but failing. He started sliding down the slipway, arms flailing as he tried to stop or slow himself. "It's over!" Callum roared down at George. "Put the blade down!" Wee Malky sounded hoarse with fear as he raced down towards the slipway foot. George stood there, the sword raised above his head. "George!" Hugo screamed. Callum screamed too and started firing at George. Wee Malky sort of draped round a stone pillar, a step away from George, who turned and brought the sword down from high above his head, whacking into wee Malky's body, making it jerk. George paused, straightened, raised the sword high again. We never saw George again. He went back into a secure unit and stayed there until he died a couple of years back. People blamed Callum partly, though he always swore he had been trying to think ahead and had shot wee Malky purely so that George would accept that the game was over and put down the sword. Only Ferg and I really blamed Felpy. He works for Mike McAvet now. We all got counselling. I hate to think how bad my nightmares might have stayed without it. I spent the evening with my parents. They wanted to congratulate me properly for joining the partnership. Mum drove us out to the Turry Inn, near roadside of Durrans on the Lonestone Road. Fine meal, fine wine. Quietly pissed, but feeling like a child again, I watched through the side window of the Audi as a waning moon, like a paring from God's big toenail, flickered between the black trunks of century trees, ridging lines of distant hills.
Stonemouth was read by David Tennant. It was a heavy entertainment production for BBC Radio 4.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. How can I ever change things that I feel?
Aye, but they still compete. I'm not saying the teams don't compete. I'm simply seeking to contrast the cutthroat, evolutionary, highly competitive world of the European and particularly the English league system with the moribund, non-relegatory, survival guaranteed world of US American so-called football. Ferg puts down his cards and slides a fiver into the centre of the table. Talking of which, raise your 5. You call that big money? No, just money. OK, see you then. 9s and 4s, jack high, you bluffing bastard, Felpe. Sunday, around noon. Traditional time for the weekly poker game at Lee Bickwoods. Lee's family ran the town's main hardware store for over a century until Homebase and B&Q moved into their respective retail estates on the outskirts of town. Now, most of the family lives in Marbella, and Lee has a couple of gift and gizmo shops here and in Aberdeen. Felpe prefers to be known as Ryan these days, but we still think of him as Felpe, and besides, calling him Ryan would confuse things, given that Felpe works for Mike Mack, who has a son called Ryan. He looks bulkily fit and well-fed these days, brown hair slicked back. He wears a blue fleece over a pink shirt, jeans, but new ones. The rest of us are in sweats, tees and old jeans, trainers all round. Even Ferg has dressed down specifically for the occasion. This is so much like the old days. And again, I have mixed feelings. In some ways, it's good and comfortable to be fitting straight back in like I've never been away, but on the other hand, I'm getting this constrictive feeling as well. After a long 2 minutes of deliberation, Felpe goes a minimum £1. This leads to progress. On a majority vote round the table, Lee pulls out his Android phone and announces a 1-minute maximum thinking time limit. He leaves the phone on the table with the stopwatch function ready. "Any jumpers this week, Ezzy?" Lee asks. Ezzy nods. "Just the one, a female, but no a fatality." "That the lassie on Wednesday night?" "Aye, one of the McGurk girls, Chantal, youngest one, I think." "You treat her?" Lee asks Jim. "Been on casualty all week," Jim says, with a nod. "Amazing how many people jump before the water and hit the grun," Ezzy says, inspecting the interior of his wallet. "Even in daylight. At night, you'd understand." Ryan Mack arrives, nods at me with a sort of wary politeness. I like the wary more than the politeness, and sits in. Ellie's ex, though I'll never be able to think of him that way. Ezzy had 3 kings, and deflates when he sees my hand. I suspect that's the last of his money. His wallet looks anorexic, and working in the bridge control room can't pay that well. I look him in the eyes, nod at the pile of money bracketed by my arms, and say quietly, "Ezzy, this is all yours if you can tell me a bit more about some of that CCTV stuff." Ezzy looks alarmed. "I can't sell you any of it." "Any footage ever disappeared, Ezzy?" "Can't really say, Stu." "What if somebody wanted to see the time Callum Murston took a dive?" Now Ezzy looks positively frightened. "Think that was all wiped." "Wiped? Police, they said to. Didn't want it falling into the wrong hands." "Really?" I ask. "The wrong hands? What does that mean, the press?" "Aye," Ezzy says. "Like, if somebody put it on YouTube or something, Mr. M might get upset and things could kick off, Ken. I was on holiday at the time, Stu, that's all I know, honest."
Everything turned around. Packing up, checking up, saw you on a do. If I could, maybe I'd give you my word.
Later, Ryan and I are sitting back on the couch together, while the others play or observe Muddy Funster 2 in all its beta version glory. "Listen, Ryan," I say quietly, because I haven't actually said this yet, and I'm probably supposed to, whether I really feel it or not, and in the end he seems like a decent enough guy. I'm sorry about you and Ellie. Sorry it didn't work out. Ryan shrugs, drinks, doesn't look at me. And I'm sorry about you and my sister. I breathe out in a sort of soundless whistle, all breath, no note. Saw Angelica yesterday, for whatever it's worth, Ryan. I think we're okay, Jell and me. Yeah, good for you, Ryan says with a small sneer, sighing and studying the top of the bud bottle. Bet you really messed up a lot of people, you two. Like I say, Ryan, I'm sorry. Ryan shrugs again. Ah, well. If you see Ellie, tell her I said hello. I don't know that I will, though, not to speak to. He gives a small, bitten-off laugh. You just threw her away, he says, wagging his finger at me. That was idiotic, Stuart. He taps himself on the chest. Ryan is sort of staring into the middle distance and can't decide what I just wasn't up to keeping her, I guess. He concludes, and sounds sad, as though this has just occurred to him and it's a terrible truth. He coughs, pulls himself up straighter. We were going to have a kid. Did you know that? I think he's going to start crying. Who knows what might have been different for Ryan if the child had been born. He and Ellie might still be together, one happy family. He might still have the sort of life I guess he wanted, or that Ellie wanted, and he was happy, grateful to be part of. Who knows? When I leave, maybe half an hour later, it's just gone 4. I stick my earbuds in and put the iPhone's tunes on shuffle. That means when somebody comes up behind you, you get no audible warning at all, and so they can grab your arm out of your jacket pocket, push it so far up your back you have to go on tiptoes because otherwise it feels like the bone's going to break, and the two of them can bundle you into the back of a suddenly appeared transit van. I'm face down on a grubby floor, dimly lit, staring at white-painted metal ridges scuffed to thin rust. Comfy there, Stewie? Murdo Murston asks. Murdo hasn't changed much. A little heavier, maybe. Aye, comfy, Norrie Murston says, and I'm tapped hard on the side of my head with something solid. I look round again to see the business end of a baseball bat just retreating. Norrie's holding it one-handed, smiling. Guys, come on, I say. There shouldn't be a problem here. I'm back to pay my respects to your Grandad Joe, that's all. Murdo looks at me. See you tomorrow. At the funeral at the hotel afterwards. What, Murdo? Don't want you talking to her. Just leave her alone, right? Grandpa said he wanted you at the funeral. Who knows why, but he said it, so fair enough. You get to go. But you just leave Ellie alone. Geez, Murdo, she's her own woman. What if she comes up to me? Then you'd better walk away. The van has felt like it's been going up a straight, shallow slope for a while now. I can hear the sounds of other traffic. Then there's pressure against my back as the van brakes smoothly and we slow to what feels like walking speed. The bridge. We're on the road bridge. Norrie opens the rear doors and there's a rush of traffic noise. Come and take a wee look, Murdo says. Out of the van I can see the crisscrossing members of the girder work under the road surface. They aren't going to throw me down there, are they? You tear the tape off their mouths, Murdo says. They think they'll get to scream or shout. But you just do this. His right fist comes whipping round and punches me in the belly. I'm not ready for it, and it sends the breath whistling out of me as I double up, folding around the ball of pain in my guts. Or, Norrie says brightly like he's just remembered, you can just whap them over the back of the head. I'm bundled back in the van. They throw me out in the southern viewing area car park. Just before they kick open the doors, Murdo says, You won't forget what we said about Ellie, eh? And punches me hard in the balls. So it's a good 10 minutes before I care about anything besides the astounding, sickening, writhing gouts of pain heaving out of my groin and wrapping themselves round my guts and brain. I waddle to and down the steps and then along the underpass beneath the carriageway to the sound of trucks pounding above my head. I should get back to Mum and Dad's and then just go home to London now, today, without waiting for tomorrow and the funeral or the day after and my booked flight. I don't think I want to tell anybody what just happened. I'm ashamed I was so easily huckled into the van. The Murstons and Mike Mack's people aren't above the law. The cops just turn a blind eye where it's felt that the two families are effectively doing police business, keeping the tune running smoothly. I was in the clubhouse of Olness Golf Club at the invitation of Mike McAvet, though apparently entirely with the blessing, and indeed probably at the instigation, of Donald Murston. In a little over a week, I'd be a married man. It was slightly unreal. That first night by the fire with Ellie seemed a very long time ago. I'd already had what had felt like a semi-formal meeting with Dawn up at the house. We were well past the what are your intentions, young man stage. I was marrying his eldest daughter. The wedding was pretty much fully organised and everything was arranged. At one point during our chat, Donald had asked me what I believed in. I was momentarily stumped. Did he mean religion-wise? Well, I'm not really religious, I'd told Donald. We were sipping single malts, just the two of us, at the well-stocked bar in what he called his rumpus room, part of the extensive cellar area beneath Hill House. I suppose I believe in truth. Truth? Have more whiskey, son, he said, reaching for the bottle. I'd been summoned to the highly prestigious Olness Golf Club to meet people. Stuart, here you are, Mike Mack said, coming up, pumping my hand and leading me back towards the dining room. I was being introduced to the chief constable for the whole region, a brace of town councillors and local businessmen, and our MEP, Alan Lowndes. He and I got to talking over some more single malts, forming our own little subcommittee slightly apart from the rest of the guys. Quite a family you're marrying into. Really, just marrying the girl, to be honest, Alan. You haven't any reservations, have you? Reservations? Well, we all know the reputation Donald and the family have, Alan said in his best we're all men of the world tones, the complicated relationship they have with the more obvious forces of law and order. He inspected his glass. We all start out as idealists. I certainly did. I hope I still am, deep down. But idealism meets the real world sooner or later, and then you just have to compromise? I hope you're not one of those people who think that's a dirty word, Alan Lowndes, MEP, said with a forgiving, understanding expression. Marriage is about compromising. Families are about compromising. Being anything other than a hermit is about compromising. Parliamentary democracy certainly is. You either learn to compromise, or you resign yourself to shouting from the sidelines for the rest of your life. Or you arrange to become a dictator. There's always that, I suppose. He shrugged. Not a great set of choices, really. But that's the price we pay for living together. And it's that or solitude. Then you really do become a wanker. Another drink?
Stonemouth by Iain Banks was read by David Tennant. It's a heavy entertainment production for BBC Radio 4.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. How can I ever change things that I feel?
A red Toyota Estate swings into the bus stop, splashing to a halt right at the entrance. The person inside leans over, reaching to push open the passenger door. My idiot heart leaps as I think, maybe it's Ellie. But it isn't. It's not Greer either. It's a guy I recognise from high school, I think. Stuart, thought that was you. Want a lift? Yeah, cheers. Thought that was you, he says again. He's Craig Jarvie from the year below ours. Thanks, Craig. Lauren McLaughlin and Drew Linton were getting married the week before Ellie and me, and having a 2-part honeymoon, a castle hotel in the Western Highlands and a designer boutique place in Santorini, so that they could attend our wedding too. The reception was in the Mernside Hotel, Stonemouth's grandest venue for nearly a century. I walked into the ballroom where the reception was being held. Maybe 20 tables of 10 places each in one half of the room, leaving the other half free for dancing. I felt a sharp tap-tap on the back of my head, just above my neck. This would be Greer, her traditional greeting for almost as long as I'd known her. I turned, and there she was, 17 and a goth, head to foot in black. "You have to dance with me," she told me, sounding very serious and looking at me from under her jet-black fringe. "No problem, Gree," I told her. I surveyed her black crepe long-sleeved polo-necked dress, black tights and black suede shoes. The heels were breathtakingly high. "I don't want to be called Gree anymore." "Back to Greer?" "Yes, on pain of death." She waggled her black fingernails at me. "I have powers, you know." At the welcome drinks tables, covered in glasses of whiskey, bubbles and Tropicana, I met Ferg. He was resplendent in full kilty outfit. I wore dark blue suede shoes, a perfectly serviceable pair of black M&S trousers, and a so dark blue it's black velvet jacket picked up for a pittance from a charity shop. "Gilmore, you look like the croupier on an Albanian cruise liner. Anyway, who or what was that?" That was Greer Murston, going to be my sister-in-law in a week. I think I quite like her. She's still a kid, Ferg. What? She's not even legal. She's 17. She's legal, but she's probably best left alone. Oh, am I being warned off? Yes, seriously, pick on somebody your own gender. He looked at me and shook his head. Did you get dressed in the dark again? Wait a minute. Your parents are away, aren't they? You got dressed by yourself. It all starts to make sense now. Holy piss up a rope, who's that? Who? There, in the red. Where? There! Good grief! Did you see her already and whack yourself blind? Ah, that's Jell. Angelica Macavet. Wasn't she the dumpy bairn that used to jump on your lap and tell you she loved you? Usually at a crucial point in doom, as I recall. I missed a few high scores that way. You wouldn't push her off and give her 50 pence to go away now? A small boy suddenly appeared in front of us, clutching a camera in his chubby hands and pointing it vaguely towards Ferg and me. Drew's dad thought it would be a hoot to give all the small children cheap, dingy cameras. Ferg appeared confused. Drew? Who's Drew? I looked at him. The groom, Ferg. Oh, that's nice. I just finished my coffee after the meal. Ellie's cup of tea lay where it had been left, untouched, just like her main course had been. She spent most of the meal dashing off to see people and was currently nowhere to be found. I turned round as a hand rested on my shoulder. Jolie, good to see you. Jolie McCall was my first girlfriend. The first girl I took on proper dates and had any sort of extended relationship with. I have to keep reminding myself ours was a relatively innocent relationship, because although we never did have full-on sex, there was a lot of everything else just short of it. Jolie's attitude was that what we had was close enough to sex for it not really to matter. She wanted to stay a virgin, maybe until she was married and or settled down and had kids. I was just on my way to the bar. Get you anything? I'll come along. G&T for me. Any tips? What for? Happy marriage. Let me think. I know. Don't have children. Seriously? Your decision, the two of you, obviously. But yes, that's my advice. But you've got 3. So I know what I'm talking about. They take over your life. They become your life. I sort of had plans, but, well... Another G&T? She smiled. Why not? You two okay? Said a concerned female voice, and I turned to find the stunning vision of curvaceous pulchritude that was Angelica Macavet, a vision in crimson at my side. A wave of her perfume rolled over me. Jolie smiled. We're fine. Can I borrow him? Jell asked. It's an 8-some reel. All hands report to the dance floor. He's not mine to lend. You can have him. Stop groaning, Jell said, using a finger to flick me on the ear. She was wearing long, red satin gloves. Do I have to? Yes. Stop being such an old man. Get your ass out there. Me legs, me feet, me old war wound, I said, in a weak, wavering voice. Omens, portents. A fire alarm went off just after they ate some real finished. "I'm sitting here," Jell announced, lowering herself delicately onto one of 3 red sun-faded plastic chairs, which looked like they were there for when the smokers amongst the staff wanted a fag break. I tried Ellie's phone, but it had no reception. Everybody else was wandering off towards the assembly area and the car park round the front. "Go, go," Jell said when she saw me hesitating. "I'm fine. See you back in there." The best part of 250 people were swirling about the car park. A big cheer went up from the crowd as Josh McAvitt arrived in a taxi, fresh off a plane from London. I stopped to say hi, then went on trying to find Ellie. I walked down and along a terrace, and found her in a clinch, basically, with the guy she'd been dancing with earlier. I recognised him now. He was the guy she'd gone out with before Josh McAvitt, the guy I'd always suspected had been her first lover. Dean Watts, that was him. They were on a terrace 1 level further down, standing, his hands cupping her backside. What the hell, was all I could think. What the hell? A breeze brought their voices and a hint of Ellie's perfume up to me. "No, listen, Dean, stop. No, just stop." "Oh, come on. Old time's sake, Elle." "No. I shouldn't have let you kiss me, let alone—" "No. Come on, before somebody sees us." This should have been Dean's cue to look about, maybe see me, but he only had eyes for Ellie. Finally, she stamped on his right brogue with her heel and marched off for the nearest steps. There. Nothing had really happened. Just a blip. A trying, a testing, and Ellie had pretty much passed. At least as well as I'd have in similar circumstances, I supposed. The evening went on. Much drink was taken, much drunken dancing committed. The amount of camera flashing declined as power ran down both in camera batteries and small children, though not as much in either as one might have hoped. Greer insisted on consecutive dances, the second being a slow one, during which she pressed herself hard against me. "I can feel your erection," she informed me, just before the song stopped. "I was thinking about Ellie," I told her. "Not Angelica Macavett." "No, not Angelica Macavett." "I see a lot," Greer whispered into my ear. "I bet you do, but not Gel, Elle." "Elle, Gel, Elle," Greer sing-songed. "Ellie," I said firmly. Greer nodded and pressed in against me again as the last notes of the song faded. "And she's thinking of Dean Watts." She stepped back, nodded. "Thanks, Stuart," she said, and skipped off. My expression, I'm sure, must have been choice. I was at the bar. "Think there's more coke going?" Gel asked, grabbing my arm. "I don't know. I could think of at least one other good reason Ferg and Josh were heading off somewhere together." "Let's follow them," Gel said in a stage whisper, eyes big and bright. "You take the lift, I'll take the stairs," I told her. This seemed like a splendid stratagem to ensure we didn't miss anybody, and also to avoid it looking like Gel and I were proceeding in a bedroom-wards direction together. "Okay." On the 4th floor, she perked up. "Emergency supplies," she said, and dug down her cleavage, feeling around inside her bra. She produced a little paper wrap. "Brilliant, but I bet these are all locked," I said, testing the nearest door, then going to the next. "Keep trying," she said, followed almost immediately by, "Aha!" It was a little ladies' toilet, 3 cubicles. Hey, we were drunk, coked up at the same time. I'd seen Ellie snogging somebody else, and there is almost a tradition for people about to get married to have one last fling. I picked her up, her legs round my waist, thudded into the middle cubicle as quietly as I could, stood there for a moment while she reached down, locking the door. We'd barely begun by the time she thought she heard a noise. "Somebody looking in and leaving again," I whispered. "False alarm." Gel raised herself a little higher, then let go of the side walls, raising both gloved hands high over her head as she sank further down onto me. So tight and hot, I nearly came there and then. Half an hour later, I was standing trying hard not to grin my face off, talking to Ferg in the hotel foyer. He looked pretty happy too, though whether this was for similar reasons I hadn't yet inquired. Part of me felt guilty, of course, but another part of me, a more influential part of my headspace, it has to be said, was already writing off the whole experience. It had been, I was in the process of deciding, a line drawing under fling, a last and very much final hurrah that meant I had kissed goodbye to the delights of other women with a fine, decisive flourish. So that was all right then. There was no warning, no hubbub or sort of raised general level of noise coming from the ballroom, just Ellie striding up to me, taking me by the arm. "You need to get out now," she told me, her voice flat. "Elle, what the—" She put her mouth to my ear. "Come on," she hissed, shaking my arm. "My family's going to kill you. They know you screwed Gel. Everybody knows you screwed Gel. Now move." We stopped at Mum and Dad's so I could grab a bag. 2 minutes after we left, Donald, Callum and Fraser were hammering at the door. They broke in, took long enough to establish I wasn't there, and left again. They'd shown some of the photos the children had taken on the big screen above the stage in the ballroom. Maybe about half the guests were still there and could be bothered to watch. The last couple of shots were taken from outside a closed cubicle. The first showed under the door a man's dark shoes on either side of the base of a pale toilet bowl, with his trousers fallen round them. A pair of red shoes were also visible, heels front to the camera. In the very last shot, a pair of red-gloved hands could be seen, fisted as though in triumph, and raised high enough into the air to appear above the cubicle itself.
Stonemouth was read by David Tennant. It was a heavy entertainment production.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. How can I ever change things that I feel?
Craig Jarvie drops me at my mum and dad's. There's no car in the driveway. Still, when I let myself in, I try to walk normally, but the house is empty. I get my mum and dad's cordless. "Hello?" "Gel, hi, it's Stuart. You busy?" "No." "Got a few minutes?" "To talk or meet up? It's okay. Really, forget I asked." I call Ferg. He was snoozing, but agrees to meet me in the Formentine Lounge in the old station hotel. We sit in the first-floor lounge looking out over Union Street. He's sipping a pint of IPA. I have a coffee. Gel tracked me down, I tell him. I'd found that I wanted to talk about that night and its repercussions, its aftermath. "What's so terrible about toilets?" Ferg says indignantly. "Nice clean toilets are lovely. I have some terribly fond memories." "I bet you do, Ferg. Anyway, all that aside, it was actually great sex. And we only had the time to do it once." Ferg glares at me. "Never mind that. Why did you never contact me?" "And we're back to you keep changing your phone number. Mine stayed the same. You changed your email. I started getting hate mail. I thought it wise. I have a policy. When people bugger off, it's up to them to contact me, not the other way round." "Do you, just not really like having friends, Ferg? Is that it?" "What about Greer? What about Greer? What about the time Greer came to stay with you?" She showed up with this guy, Brad. Weird, skeletal, long, greasy hair. "So, you do have a spare room?" "I did at the time. Didn't I mention my plan to turn it into a gym?" "Okay, so..." Ferg sits forward, looking interested. "Sleeping arrangements?" "Well, so I offer her the spare room and Brad the couch, but he's unable to sleep on the couch because it isn't comfortable. And ever since his mum left and his dad died, or the other way round, he can't sleep alone and can't climb in with me." Fresh. "So, I tell him to get lost. I should hope so. Bugger gay solidarity. If you're going to have the temerity to reject me, you'd better reject anybody else. Greer, by this time, is throwing things at Brad. Soft things, hard things, my things, a pillow, an alarm clock, also a lamp. So we cleared the place, tidied a little, double-locked the door. Brad was on the outside by this time. First one I personally kicked out. A little inhospitable, but there you are. I told Greer that she could have my bed and I'd take the couch. But she's still, really upset and says, no more to it, honestly, nothing extra intended or expected or wanted. But can she sleep with me? So you did. So I did. I slept with her. But I didn't. So why didn't you? Well, I don't know. She was still young and still... She was legal at the wedding when you and Jill did the cubicle pogo. This would be 2 years later, 3? Yeah, but still sort of, young. Oh well, Ferg says. So, any punchline? What? To the Greer in your bed story, any punchline? Not really. An awkward breakfast and she left early. Didn't see her again till a day or two ago. Ferg regards me levelly for a moment or two. I've got one. You've got one what? A punchline? Oh yeah. I had her that same night. I thought I warned you off her. So, I love a challenge. Forbidden fruit, you moron. Did you use a condom? Of course I used a condom. What sort of... I thought you went off with Josh that night. So what? I shake my head. Look at him. You total wanker.
Everything turned around. Packing up, checking up, saw you on a door. If I could, maybe I'd give you my word.
It's a damp, cloudy Sunday evening in what's definitely beginning to feel like the start of autumn rather than the end of summer, and I'm 26, but I'm still going back to my mum and dad's for my tea. There's a green Mini parked outside. It's Ellie's. Or at least it was Ellie's. That was 5 years ago. This is my place, my folks' place. But that might be Ellie's car there at the curbside, and if it is, then she might be in there, and if she is in there, then... What was it her brothers were saying? Oh yes, don't talk to her. And if she approaches you to talk to you, walk away, or else. Listen to yourself, Gilmore. And look at yourself. This is the family home. This is still where you belong. If she chooses to come here, that's her business, not Murdo's or Norrie's or Donald's or anybody else's. I shake my head at my reflection. Do I want to see Ellie? Part of me dreads this because I've realised just over the last couple of days how much I need to see her again. Of course I want to see her again. She may still hate me. She may just want to slap me in the face and tell me I should never have come back. But even if it's that, I need to know. I let myself in. As usual, when the storm doors are open, that means people are home and the inner doors aren't locked. Voices from the kitchen. I walk in, and Ellie's there. Sitting at the table with Mum and Dad, tea and biscuits all round. Ellie smiles at me. It's not a big smile, but it's a smile. Here he is, Mum says. Aye, your phone off? Dad asks. Lost it. Got a new one. Hi, Ellie. Hello, Stuart. You're looking well. Not as good as you. Thought you might want to come for a drive? You okay? Ellie asks as she turns the Mini out of DeBroch Drive. Fine, I tell her. Didn't really mean generally, Stuart. I meant after Murdo and Norrie had a wee word, as they put it earlier. Ah. They got drunk afterwards. Obviously it wasn't done, at my instigation. I'd guessed. There's a pause. Eventually I take a breath and say, I'm sorry. You're sorry? For cheating on you, Ellie. Oh, that. Doesn't mean I expect you to forgive me either. Well, there you are. Anyway, it's good to see you again. And you. She glances at me. I wasn't sure it would be, but it is. What about you? I ask, as we cross over the bypass, heading for a patch of light above the hills where the dipping sun is filtering through the thinning streams of cloud. I heard you're helping people with addictions these days. Yeah, well, strictly speaking, it's the rest of my family that helps people with their addictions. I help them to try to break them. Seeing anyone special? Hardly got the time. You? Not really. Not since Ryan. Well, there was one guy, but that... So, no. Ellie drives much like she always did, with the same easy grace she brings to most tasks, braking seldom and gently, swinging the car quickly, neatly into curves on a single stuck-to line she rarely needs to amend. Seven or so years ago, Ellie and I drove down the coast to Pivy on a whim at the end of the season. On the beach, we found a thick length of rope, just 3 meters long but as thick as my arm, sturdy enough it looked to moor supertankers with. She and I made jokes about enormous plugs, about giant bits of soap. The wind whipped the water, uncombing my hair and sending hers flying. On the way back, we were in a long queue of traffic, stopped at some temporary traffic lights on the main road back north, when Ellie said, "We should get away somewhere." She looked at me. "You and me, Stuart. When we both finished our courses, if we're going to stay together, will we stay together, do you think?" "Eh? Course we will. We'll be together forever. That's the general idea, isn't it? You and me? Together?" "Yes. Until we're old." "Only until we're old? Like we should split up when we're 60 or 90 or something?" She smiled. "Forever." So I'm sitting in Ellie's Mini as we potter along behind an in-no-hurry Kia, remembering that day 7 years ago, and how low I felt then for some reason. "I don't want you to..." Her voice trails off. She shakes her head, puffs her cheeks and blows air out, making the kind of noise I associate with exasperated Parisian taxi drivers. She looks at me. I'm looking at her. "It is over," she says, turning her attention back to the road. She spares me only occasional glances after this. "You mean you and me?" "Yeah, I'm not... It's all in the past now, yeah? All done with. Water under the bridge, soap under the wedding ring and all that. That's how you feel? I mean, it is, isn't it?" What sort of idiot would I be to feel any other way? "Okay, but I need a real answer." "Okay, in some ways my feelings haven't changed. Towards you, I mean." She nods thoughtfully, drives calmly. "You asked, so I'm telling you." But by this point I start to realize I'm talking just to fill the silence. And so I shut up. "So," I found myself saying eventually, "did you come to find me because the boys roughed me up?" "I suppose I did. They'd made me angry, made me want to get back at them. Told them I was coming over to your mum and dad's just to talk to you, or I'd make a point of seeing you at the funeral tomorrow, and Donald would know all about it if they even thought of threatening you again. So... stupid." She shakes her head. "I kind of need your word on this, Stuart. I mean, seriously, properly." "It'll go no further if that's what you..." "Okay, here it is. Dad, Don, has actually suggested maybe I should take over. Seriously, the whole business. Everything. In fact, particularly the illegal side." "God." Ellie nods. "My first thought too." "Geez, you're not even thinking of..." "Stuart, are you remembering what I do these days?" "Oh, yeah. Drug counselling, rehab, whatever." Some people would think that'd be great cover." "Yeah, I guess some people would." "Maybe it'll all get legalised and you can turn legit, or just go back to running the property and transport businesses." Ellie shakes her head. "Maybe, who knows." After a while I say, "Of course, there's always Greer. She might be up for it." "Careful, for you tread upon my nightmares." I can't help laughing. She wouldn't. I think about it. Would she? Elle smiles. No, she wouldn't, and the boys certainly wouldn't take orders from her. Do you two not get on at all, then? We get on fine, Elle says, almost indignant, when we meet up. She shrugs. We just take some care to make sure we don't meet up too often. She left some photo shoot she was working on in Montserrat the other day. Just walked out and flew home on no notice. You mean, like, just to be here this weekend? Yup. Never thought she and old Joe were even that close. So what? I ask her. Greer just upped and left as soon as she heard Joe was dead. Nope. Day or so after. Aha. Yeah. Ah bloody ha, as you might say. Stuart.
Stonemouth was read by David Tennant. It was a heavy entertainment production for BBC Radio 4.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. How can I ever change things that I feel?
When Greer was 14, she really wanted a horse, but her dad wouldn't buy her one. Ponies had been good enough for Ellie, but then she'd kind of outgrown that phase, and besides, Greer wasn't good with pets. She sulked mightily. There was some heroic door slamming. Dawn retaliated by having all the house doors fitted with those overhead hydraulic closing gizmos that close doors automatically and softly. The following spring, the main lawn of Hill House suddenly erupted into flower. From bulbs somebody had dug into the grass the year before. The flowers made up a picture of a severed horse's head, maybe 5 or 6 metres from the tip of its nose to the ragged bloody neck. Red tulips stood in for the blood. Greer denied everything and suggested it might be some sort of underworld message from a business associate of Donald's. Ellie heard that the resulting explosion of rage from her dad made Greer wet her pants. Aye, she's some kid, I said, when Ellie first told me all this. She's frightening, Ellie said. 14-year-olds just don't usually think that far ahead. Ellie and I walk up the grassy slope back into the sunlight and along the stone summit of the dam wall to a metal bridge over the overflow at the eastern edge. Do you ever feel like you're just waiting to die? She asks, not looking at me. Not really, no, I tell her. But I'm thinking, this is a bit heavy. Not wanting to die, she says, just waiting for it to happen. Like you're already anticipating the end. I nod. Always good to have something to look forward to. Sometimes I feel like I just want to keep my head down, never get beaten up or raped, never become a refugee or a war widow, never starve or have to bury my own children. Compared to that, what you did to me was nothing. But you still took me to the station. I leave it a few moments, then ask, why did you do it? What, spirit you away? Protect you? Yeah. There must have been part of you wanted the boys to give me a good kicking right then. She shakes her head. No, there wasn't, not right then. She looks at me with a strange expression. One I'm not sure I can read at all. You want to know the truth? I've rarely, maybe never, felt so alive, so in control, so good about myself as I did that night. She looks away, sighs. Want to come to mine for something to eat? It'll just be pasta or stir-fry or something. Thanks, I'd love to. This isn't, coffee, she tells me with a small smile. You know, that old thing. I manage a smile too, from more innocent days. Just a meal. Then I'll take you back to your folks. I know. Appreciated. Come on then. She hands me the Minnie's key, so I drive us back to her flat in the converted mansion called Carndown Castle. She goes to the loo. I'm told to put some music on, make myself at home. What to choose? Be too trite to select something we both loved. Aretha Franklin and Think, finally. Elle reappears, minus fleece, with an open shirt, light blue, worn loose over her tee. You can help if you like. Love to. We eat in the kitchen. just nattering about old times and old friends, laughing now and again as the monstrous shadow of the building is thrown longer and longer across the sheep-dotted parkland to the southeast. "I better take you back," she says, after some very good espresso from a neat little machine. "Yeah, thanks for all this." She shrugs. "Sorry, there's no invitation to stay." "You would if I did, though, wouldn't you?" "What, invite me to stay the night?" "Mm-hmm. Of course I would. Thought so." She nods at my jacket. "Get your coat, love." She drives me back through a starry night, the Mini's headlights piercing the fragrant late summer darkness of the parkland around the old building. We pull up outside Mum and Dad's. Ellie leans over quickly and kisses me on the cheek. "Tomorrow. Tomorrow." I watch the Mini's lights disappear round the corner and touch my cheek where she kissed me. "Still more than you deserve," I murmur to myself. Monday. It's another one of those diaphanous days, the toon submerged in a glowing mist from dawn onwards. It's supposed to lift later, according to the forecast, though the forecasting people are notoriously bad at getting the toon's weather right. "Do you know," Dad says, as we stand in the crowd gathered round the graveside on Hulshire's Hill, "I'm nearly 50, and this is the first actual interment I've been to." "It's a good crowd," Mum says, looking round. I caught a glimpse of Mr. and Mrs. Murston, him looking grim, her with her mouth set tight. Mostly, I watched Ellie and Greer. They walked together, looking straight ahead, beautiful in black. Their grandad, old Joe Murston, would have thought they were both lovely. I didn't doubt. The family got to the graveside and sat down, and I lost sight of the girls. I looked around, then spotted Ferg further up the hill, passing a silvery hip flask to a tearful-looking, raven-haired girl next to him. The family troop back down to the ancient Daimlers and stretch Fords and Volvos, and the rest of us disperse amongst the gravestones to find our own highly scattered cars and minibuses, while the sky above us teases out its cloudy wisps from gold to streaked and filmy blue as a light breeze picks up off the sea. We're back to the Mernside Hotel and Spa for the post-funeral ceremony cold collation, as it is so charmingly entitled. "I think I'll get buried at sea," Dad says, gruffly, though he's grinning. "Fine. I'll expect a discount on the hire of the dredger." Dad chuckles wheezily. Ferg inspects me when we meet up in the giant bay window that forms most of the reception room's eastern edge. I'm holding a whiskey from the welcome table by the doors. "Who was that girl you were plying with drinks in the graveyard?" "Plying? There's a word one hears all too seldom these days, don't you think?" Avoiding the question, there's a phrase one hears all too frequently. "Name's Charlene. Used to cut what was left of the late Mr. Murston Sr.'s hair in the local tonsorial emporium." I look round. "She's still here?" "Back to work. But we sort of have a date afterwards." We clink glasses. "To Joe," I say. "So a friend said they saw you in Elle's car yesterday evening, late-ish. What did you talk about? Anything salacious?" "Some interesting stuff. Can't divulge." "Of course not," Ferg says, rolling his eyes. "You are a sort of bilge of last resort for interesting information, aren't you, Stuart?" "So you didn't?" I can neither confirm nor deny. But no." "Bodie," Dad says, arriving holding a whiskey. He transfers it from one hand to the other to shake Ferg's hand. "How's it hanging?" "Little left of true as usual, Stuart's dad. Please call me Ferg." Dad laughs. "What you two hatching? Looked deep in conversation there." "Ferg is far too shallow to have a deep conversation with," I tell him. "Your son hits the nail on the cuticle as ever. I'm only deep on the surface. Inside I'm shallow to the core." "OK, I'll be over at Mike and Sue's table. See you, Bodie," he calls as he turns away. "Cheers, Mr. G," Ferg says, then swivels back to me. "So, how do things stand between you and Ellie?" "They stand erect, Ferg." "Actually, they don't. They more Recline. Ferg looks at me for a bit longer, then finishes his second whisky. Shall we to the groaning buffet tables? Yes, I suppose we... Stuart, a deep, purposeful voice says. Ferg. Pow, hello, Ferg says, shaking the impressive mitt of Powell Imrie as he arrives to loom over us. Dressed in formal black, Powell looks even more like a high-class bouncer than usual. Heard Murd and Norrie came to see you yesterday. That's right, I agree. You okay? Fine. Wasn't anything to do with me, just want you to know that. Didn't think it was, Powell. He glances smoothly round towards the centre of the room and the Murston family table. I've had a wee word. Shouldn't happen again. Thanks. Dad and I head to the Murston table. Will I do the talking? He asks quietly en route. Fine by me. The three brothers are wolfing into seconds, and Mrs. M is staring into a small mirror, reapplying makeup when we arrive. Donald has seen us coming and stands to shake our hands stiffly. Ellie's watching me, a small, sad smile on her face. I better get back to work, Dad tells me, near the doors. He holds my elbow briefly. You take it easy, Chief, okay? Aye, sir. No. Seriously, son. Seriously, aye, Dad. I'll be fine. Ferg is loitering by the end of the buffet table, filling his face and eyeing the desserts. I lift a sticky cocktail sausage from his plate. I inspect the sausage, eat a chunk, and put it back on his plate. But then we should get drunk. Back on message at last, about time. He nods at the half-eaten sausage. I'm still going to eat that, you know. I've drifted towards a crowd of people standing near the bar. The Murston brothers are reminiscing about old Joe, and Murdo has decided to tell a story. Anyways, he says, supping quickly from his pint, he's got this bucket of water at the side of the gates, on the inside like. So he's out of the wall, hunkered down there inside the cemetery, waiting for his pals. And what he does is, he sticks his horn in the bucket of water. And he's like this for 5 minutes or 10 or something. Norrie whistles. I'd be bloody cold. Murdo gulps more beer. He's like this for 5 or 10 minutes, with his horn getting colder and colder, and then he hears his pals coming down the road, and does his pal no do what he always does, and stick his hand through the cemetery gates, offering to shake horns with the deed. So Joe takes his horn, which is like totally freezing now, and he grabs the hand of his pal and gets it really tight and gives it a good hard shake, and of course there's no lights on the road then or anything. And he can't be seen because he's in the shadows anyway, and still behind the wall. Well, of course, his pal screams like a lassie and lamps off down the road, screaming blue murder and pushing his brakes. We're all laughing, forming a ring of hilarity around Murdo, whose big, beaming, ruddy face is grinning wildly. Oh, Stuart, Murdo calls out. You knew Joe a bit, did you know? Aye, nice old guy. Must have taught you a thing or two, aye. Can't I get everything from my university education, I know? I'm on the spot here. Since I saw his body in the funeral parlour a couple of days ago, I've been trying to think of something wise or profound Joe said, and there's really only one thing I can remember. Yeah, he said something once about how one of the main mistakes people make is thinking that everybody else is basically like they are themselves. All right, Murd says. Joe really did say something like this, and even at the time I thought it might be one of the more useful bits of geezer lore he'd offered up. What was that story about them in that cesspit at the farm that time? Norrie says, and I'm able to slip away as people refocus on the three brothers again.
Stonemouth by Iain Banks was read by David Tennant. It's a heavy entertainment production for BBC Radio 4.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. How can I ever change things that I feel?
Stuart, Angelica says. I'm back at the buffet tables, looking at the puddings and trying to decide if I'm remotely hungry or just being greedy. We're going, she tells me, putting one hand on my forearm. But there's a few people been invited back to the house later. Feel free, okay? She dives in with a small cheek kiss, turns and goes. I'm at the bar, getting a pint for myself, plus one for Ferg, and a large whiskey too. Stuart, Ellie says, slipping in beside me at the bar. We wind our way through the press round the bar, heading for Ferg, back in prime position in the centre of the giant bay window. I hand him his pint. Ellie presents his whiskey. Thank you, Stuart. And Ellie. And how are you, Ferg? Ellie asks. Oh, radiant. There's some very so-whatish chat for a couple of minutes. Then Ellie says she'd better be going. A mum to drop at the house. You be here later, she says as she passes. Yup. There's something I want to do before I get too pissed, and before Ellie gets back. I go up to the 4th floor, prepared to be as brazen as you like regarding the dispensation of nods, hellos and so on, but there's nobody to be seen. So I stand there, looking up at the top of the middle cubicle's door, and holding the phone up and out, and then closer to and further in, trying to get everything aligned. There's no problem with the photos taken from under the sinks, from beneath the curtain. Any kid could have taken them. So could any adult prepared to stoop so low. It's this one. The one featuring the pair of red satin gloves hoisted ecstatically, if I may make so immodest, above the cubicle door that poses credibility problems. Nothing fits until I'm standing upright. The image, and by implication the camera that took it, at about adult head height. I try to get a word with Greer, but at the same time I don't want to just rock up to the Murston table, not with the Surly brothers using it as their base for expeditions to the bar, and with the disapproving relations in attendance. The third time, in the corridor just outside the function room, Greer looks like she's going to walk right past me again, ignoring me, even after a perfectly audible, "Greer!" I step in front of her. She almost collides with me. She frowns, makes to go past. "Stu, do you mind?" I block her again. "Greer, what do you think you're doing, Gilmore?" Shit, it's Fraser, her brother, right behind me, hand on my shoulder. "This arsehole giving you grief?" "Don't," Greer says. "I can look after myself." "No, it'd be a pleasure." Greer takes his arm, starts to pull him away. "Let's get back to the table." "What if I don't want to?" "Come on, Fraser, see me back," she says. Slightly shaken, I return to the room. I sit down and say hi to a whole table of people I vaguely recall from school. One of the girls, the cute one with short black hair, is trying to tell me about something that wasn't her fault, but all I can think about is Fraser's threatening behaviour. I head for the bar. All the local worthies, all the important people in town, are either still here or on their way out or not long departed. Oh, just look at you all. Self-satisfied, but still desperate to get on, do better, compete, make more. And it's okay, because this is the way everybody is. This is what everyone does. So there's nothing to be gained by being any different. "What's it like being returned to the scene of the crime, eh?" A slightly slurred voice asks. I turn towards the voice, and it's Donald Murston, Ellie's dad. "Mr. M," I say, nodding to him. He swings an arm, sort of slaps me medium weight on the upper arm in what is probably meant to be a bluff, manly sort of way. "Nah, it's all right. Just thought it might be funny for you, being back here after that night, you know." "Well, it is," I admit. "Good job we didn't catch you that night, eh?" Ellie, returned, wears smart but casual black jeans, lilac blouse and dark jacket. She walks straight up to us. "Dad, Stuart, you two okay?" she asks, looking and sounding tense. "Fine, but all good, aye," Don says. "You're not running Stuart out of town again, are you, Dad?" "No, well, he's off tomorrow, that right, aye?" "Aye," I say, "back down the road tomorrow." "And anyway," Don says, still looking at me, "we weren't trying to run him out of town the last time." I think his eyes narrow a wee bit. We were trying, Donald says slowly, to get our hands on him. I told Donald I'd apologise to you, I tell Ellie. My mouth is getting dry. Yes? Ellie looks from me to her dad, and he did. Ah, well, but that doesn't make everything all right, does it? Stuart tells me he still has feelings for me. Ellie's gaze swivels in my direction, while Dawn just stares at my nose. Isn't that right, Stuart? I take a moment before answering. Yes, that's what I said. It's true. I also said I didn't expect anything. Oh, aye. That's funny. I still have feelings for Stuart, too. I'll bet the boys still have feelings as well. Ellie takes her dad's upper arm in one hand and mine in the other, holding us like a ref before a boxing match. Dawn glares at me. Will you both just stop? Ellie says gently. She squeezes my arm a little, probably his too. This is about me, hello? And I'm still thinking, and we'll talk about this sensibly, I hope, when I've decided how I feel. That okay, Dad? Dawn looks thoughtful. Maybe, he concedes. Stuart? Wish I knew what this was meant to accomplish, I confess. Clearing the air, Ellie says to both me and Dawn. She looks at me. Okay? Okay, I say. She looks back at Dawn. Okay? Aye, okay. Ellie and I walk out of the hotel and down into the gardens. Ellie gives a small laugh, nods to one side and says, I had my own little micro-fling here, an hour or two before you and Angelica got jiggy. I look at her, eyebrows raised. Dean Watts, remember him? Yep. Ellie nods. I sort of let him kiss me, just back there. I know. I saw, I tell her. You saw me and Dean? Yeah. I wasn't following you, just coincidence, but yes. You never said. We resume our descent of the stone stairs. Greer told Jell that you'd always wanted to get off with her. With Jell, I mean, Ellie says. We keep on walking. Did she now? Jell let it slip once. We had a drunken night of blame, recrimination, apologies, forgiveness, and some wine-fueled tears and hugs a couple of years back. She sighs, rubs her hands together, palms flat as she leans on the wall. I'm not sure what I feel about you, she tells me. It's not that I have to search for feelings about you, that they're so minor or hidden I need to look hard to find them. It's more that I have really intrusive feelings about you. But they're contradictory, they clash, and I can't work out the balance of them. Not yet. So part of you still hates me. Hate might be too strong. I take a deep breath. Look, I think part of me just wants to know you don't hate me. Part of me just wants your forgiveness so I can feel I'm not that bad a person after all, and then I bugger off back out your life again so I can get on with my own life. What do you want of me, Stuart? She asks softly. What is it you want to ask me? Or tell me? I take a deep breath and let it out. I'll always love you, Ellie. Even if we never see each other again and I find somebody else and I fall completely in love with her and she becomes the love of my life and we have kids and live happily together for the next 60 years, I'll still always love you. But I can't offer you any more than I did before. And I let you down then. She smiles. I've stopped hating you. And I never entirely stopped loving you, even though I probably should have. She shrugs. I'll always be part of this family, Stuart. I know. There's a pause. Then she says, the thing about Callum? What? He might have been pushed, and he might have deserved it. I think about this. Uh-huh. Okay. So who did the pushing? The boys. Dawn, possibly. First thing I thought when I heard Callum was dead was that Greer had actioned her plan about accusing him, or threatening to accuse him, of raping her that night in his bed when she was still a kid. As it turns out, Callum might have been in talks with one of the businesses from Glasgow, the same people who tried expanding into Stonemouth a few years ago and were sent homeward to think again. But I could be wrong. It could all be wrong. She flexes, using her backside to push herself away from the wall. Come on. Well past time I had a proper drink. I push away too. Amen to that. Ellie and I walk back into the half-emptied room where people are still talking, milling, eating and drinking, but the table where the cute girl was sitting has been abandoned, and I can't see her or her friends anywhere. I leave Ellie talking to an old academy pal and tell her I won't be long. Stonemouth being the size it is, it takes all of 5 minutes of just asking around to find out who the people at the table were and who the cute girl with the black hair is. I even get her phone number. I take another walk outside. Tasha? Yeah? Stuart Gilmore. We were talking earlier. Oh, yeah. Hello again. Tasha, I take it you were one of the kids who had the digital cameras at Lauren McLaughlin and Drew Linton's wedding. Would that be right? Well, yeah. You were saying something about how it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fair hands that took those photos, you know? Yeah, that. You said somebody put you up to it. That was Greer, wasn't it? You gave the camera to Greer, is that right? Gotta go now, bye. Uh-huh, I say quietly to an unresponsive phone. I rejoin Ellie at the bar. She appears to have Ferg in tow, which is just as well as he's listing. Gilmore, he says, eyes widening when he sees me. You'll do. This demented harridan refuses to escort me off the premises for the purposes of smoking. Ferg's practically asleep when we arrive at Mike Mack's place. Jell greets us, all happy, smiling, pleased to see us. A while later, I'm feeling a little dozy here in the humid, sunny warmth of the pool area. Ellie is doing double lengths underwater now, hyperventilating at the shallow end of the pool and then slipping under the surface. Jell comes and sits down on the lounger next to me, holding a glass of something pale and bubbly. And how are you and Ellie? She asks. I shake my head. Not entirely sure. She taps my forearm twice as she rises. Best of luck. She goes off to talk to Felpy and a couple of the others. I look after her for a moment, then turn back to watch Ellie. She's back under the water again, flowing along just above the glistening surface of the tiles on the pool bottom, like something more liquid than the water itself.
Stonemouth was read by David Tennant. It was a heavy entertainment production for BBC Radio 4.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. How can I ever change things that I feel?
A bunch of us head down to the beach, over the red sandstone wall at the bottom of the Macavet's garden. There's Ellie and me, Felpy, an awakened, groggy and still slightly grumpy Ferg, and Jell and Ryan. With you shortly, I tell Ellie, then drop back from the rest as they walk along. When I'm far enough back, I take out my phone and call Greer. Greer, it's Stuart. Yeah, what? You got a moment? Okay, but tell me now, am I going to enjoy this? Probably not. Say your piece, Stu. Did you set it all up? Set what all up? 5 years ago. The kids and cameras idea. Telling Jell I was her biggest fan, taking a camera off one of the children and making sure you got the right shot of me and Jell. Why would I do all that? Jealousy, maybe? Jealousy? Are you serious? Okay, forget the motivations. Just tell me, is it true? Did you set up the thing with the cameras? No, and don't be ridiculous. Getting caught with your pants down in a toilet stall by a little kid too inglorious for you has to be a conspiracy, yeah? Grow up, Stu. The phone goes dead. There's a bit on the beach that's just right for a swim, Ellie says. Looks a bit cold, Jell says. Ryan looks like he'd happily volunteer to go in with Ellie, skinny dipping if necessary, but can't bring himself to say it. We'll just watch you, Felpy says, with what might be a leer. Yes, do try not to drown, Ferg tells her, rummaging through one of the cool boxes, probably looking for the drink with the highest ABV. Ellie is putting on a day-glow yellow bathing cap, tucking her hair up into it. I'll try, she says. I saunter over to Felpy, sit by him for a bit. How you doing, Felpy? How's life, anyway? Felpy grins at me, rotates his shoulders inside his tee and fleece and nods. Oh, fine. Funny old day, eh? I nod. Funerals are sometimes, I suppose. Heard there might have been a wee contretemps between you and Fraze earlier in the Mernside. That right, eh? I waggle a hand. Minor misunderstanding. Still, best be careful with Fraze, eh? Have been, I tell him. Will be. Ellie's been in the sea for about 8 minutes. I keep scanning the water, staring into the ephemeral chaos of the waves, trying to see the yellow bathing cap. Is that somebody's phone? Felpy says. Thought I heard that a minute ago, Ryan says. Wasn't sure. Not mine, Jill says. Left it in the house. Ferg is checking his phone. Me neither. Ellie's, Jill says. Could be her dad, Ferg suggests. Late for her tea, probably. The ringtone cuts off. We sit watching the waves for a few more seconds until it goes again. By now, I guess we're all thinking that, assuming it's the same person calling each time, there might be some sort of emergency. Think we should answer it? Ryan asks. At least see who it is, Jill suggests. I lift Ellie's jacket up, pull her generations-old Nokia out and look at the screen. It says Greer. I glance out at the waves again, but there's still no sign of Ellie. She's been out a while now, well over 10 minutes. Her phone goes off in my hand, making me jump. It's Greer again, I tell the others. I'd answer it, Jill says. I will if you won't. No, it's okay, I tell her, lifting the phone to my ear and pressing the green phone symbol. Greer, it's Stuart. Ellie's in the water. Can I help? Where are you? We're on the beach at the end of the prom, North End. Listen, there's been a situation up here. Dad and Murdo got a bit leery with each other. Murdo pulled, but Powell's gone and... Well, it's Fraser. Fraser? Set off a couple of minutes ago, roaring drunk in his pickup. Couldn't stop him. Might be looking for you. Me? You, Stuart. Yes, you. Why? Why do you think? Get away from there. Can't. Ellie's in swimming. What? So? Get away. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Okay, he might be carrying. Jesus, I'm phoning the police. It's like she can't believe it herself. Then the phone clicks off. We might need to, I start saying to the others, just as Felpy says, uh-oh. I follow his gaze in time to see a big black American pickup smack into the metal bollards guarding the top of the slipway. That's Fraser Murston's wagon. I've got Ellie's phone dialing 999. We're all standing up by now. I glance round to see if Ellie's visible yet. No sign. What was all that about? Jill asks me. Fraser's looking for us, I tell her. Well, me. What service do you require? Says an operator's voice from Ellie's phone. Police, I tell the guy calmly. Shit, Felpy says. Is that a shooter he's got? Oh my God, Jill almost screams. Stonemouth, I say, talking over the emergency services operator. There's a guy with a gun, a handgun, threatening people on the beach at Stonemouth, north end of the promenade. Gilmore! Gilmore, you bastard! Fraser yells, his voice made faint by the wind and waves. He looks wild, hair messed, blood about his mouth and smeared across one cheek, his face ruddy. He's carrying the gun down at his thigh, big-looking thing, flat. All right, Fraser, I hear Felpy say, trying to sound calm. Bugger off! Fraser yells, only 6 or 7 metres away now. You keep the hell out of this, Felpy! I could still run. I can't. I'm not going to, but maybe I should. Too late now, anyway. It's all too late. This madman's going to kill me. Fraser's maybe 5 metres away. He brings the gun up, pointing at me. Ellie is running towards us through the last shallows of the surf like she thinks she's the cavalry. Fraser, she yells, though I can hardly hear. We should have hunted you down 5 years ago, Fraser is saying quite quietly now, when something bounces off his head. It's a mobile phone, as thrown by Ferg, who starts towards Fraser. The noise of the shot is quite flat. Ferg folds, clutching at his right side, then pitches forward onto his knees. Fraser points the gun back at my head. I can hear Ellie somewhere behind me shouting. The gun fires again, and the shot tears the air over my head. Ellie's screaming behind me, closer now, and Felpy is moving, throwing himself at Fraser, who turns and shoots him. Right in the head. I don't know why I do a rugby tackle. I've never even played rugby, but I throw myself at Fraser's knees. There's a blur of movement and a terrific whack on the side of my head, and suddenly Fraser's whipping backwards with a cracking sound, and he's gone limp. Ellie is standing nearby, holding the gun and the spare clip. She throws the clip north, the gun south. The empty weapon bounces and somersaults along the sand. I can hear sirens now. I sit on Fraser's chest. He grunts, tries to fend me off, arms flailing weakly. His nose looks broken, and blood is flowing and spitting from his mouth. Kicked him too hard, Ellie mutters. By Felpy's body, Gel, on her knees, puts back her head and howls. Tuesday morning, a week later. Ellie drives me to the station. Felpy was dead almost before he hit the sand. Ferg is alive and getting better. Fraser's got a multiply fractured jaw, a broken nose, and missing teeth. They came and took the hire car away. I wouldn't have been fit to drive the next day anyway. Plus, of course, there was the matter of helping the police with their inquiries. Fraser is being strongly advised to plead guilty by the very best legal brains money can buy in Scotland. They'll plead mitigating circumstances to try to get the sentence reduced. These might include grief relating to his grandfather's funeral, continuing grief relating to his brother Callum, and, perhaps, familial shame regarding my seeming reinstatement in his sister's affections. There's been what you might call a summit meeting between Dawn and Mike Mack, and apologies made. Dawn will be pleased to pay for Felpy's funeral and to make a generous donation to his family or a charity of their choice. So there's still Felpy's funeral to come. That might be a while off yet, while the murder case is squared away, but of course I'll be coming back for it. I spent one night in hospital, being observed, though the concussion seemed about as mild as it was possible to get. I saw Ellie every day. We ended up sleeping together, but only sleeping because she just needed to be held, nothing else. The next night she said it might be the same, but then it wasn't. What now? She asked me as we lay together in her bed. For us, I said. Yeah, for us. What do you want? What do you want? I want you and me to be together. Married? Not married, unless that really matters to you. It doesn't. Okay, me neither. But back together. And be your love. And be my love. Forever. Where would we live? Anywhere. London, if you like. London wouldn't be my first choice. Well, I'm probably going to resign. Really? Yeah, really. I'm ashamed how easily I gave up the idea of being a struggling artist for the idea of having a proper job. I might become an eco-warrior or something. Or I could just do something else that was actually worthwhile. What? I don't know. Whatever we do, we'll be okay. We'll always survive. We stay together. Sleep together each night. Then it's the night before I have to head south. Then it's that morning. And then she drives me to the station. I choose my spot on the stretch where the first-class carriages will stop, put my bag down. Well, she says, standing, looking sort of compressed. Still hate goodbyes? Doesn't everybody? I suppose. I'll just go. That okay? Yeah, I suppose. Finally, like useless teenagers, we manage a hug and a slightly rushed kiss. She squeezes me on the arms with both hands, then turns and walks away. That was a shit goodbye. We can do better than that. I lift up my bag, shoulder it again, and start up the platform after her. The train appears, coming round the tree-lined curve a couple of 100 metres away to the north, banked, slow, segmented, insectile. She looks back, sees me, smiles and holds both hands out. I put my bag down again and take them. "Yes, what?" she says. "A proper kiss." "Yeah, that one didn't really take, did it?" We kiss properly, slowly and deeply. "You and me. Let's give it a go, okay?" "Very okay." We kiss again as the train pulls, screeching and squealing to a stop. "Still need to be convinced?" "I guess." "I'll do my best." "Please do." "See you very soon," I tell her. "Good." A few minutes later, the train crosses the Stoon on the old grey granite bridge. From here, though you're just 10 metres or so above the river, right where it starts to widen for the basin and the estuary, there's a wide, clear, open view between the remnants of the tree-bare water meadows, the marshes and the salt flats towards the docks and the harbour. Past those is the town itself, with its grey-brown clutter of buildings, spires and towers, edged by the bright flat plain of water with its tarnish marks of cloud shadows and ruffled fields of wind shear, and beyond that the road bridge, rising grey and tall and shimmering in the east, astride a silver glimpse of sea.
Stonemouth by Iain Banks was read by David Tennant. It was abridged by Peter Mackie and was a heavy entertainment production for BBC Radio 4.